Welcome to today's episode for people interested in the extraordinary, yet ancient and often long forgotten stuff. This is your host, Joseph Schinwald from homebythebeach.com. Our guest today is Jonathan Troen. Hello, Jonathan.
Hello there. So happy to be with you.
Excellent, Jonathan. This will be a fantastic interview. Our topic today is self-love and why we self-sabotage ourselves. Jonathan Troen is a life mastery coach and co-founder of Austin Yoga Tree and the Life Mastery Collective. His latest creation is the Self-Love Revolution. Jonathan's mission to help people find the joy inside of themselves. His biography. Jonathan spent 20 plus years in the entertainment industry. He was living the life of his dreams, meeting the biggest stars in the world, except he wasn't happy. He couldn't figure why. He began studying people, how they lived, what motivated them, and how they defined success. His studies brought him to one conclusion. Most of us are mean to ourselves, and all we really want is to be loved. He also discovered that when we seek love from outside, it is fleeting. Lasting love comes from inside of us. And since we are not taught to love ourselves, this creates a problem. Jonathan created the Self-Love Revolution specifically to share the methodology he created after 15 years of research and practice. Jonathan's belief: we all deserve success. We all deserve to be loved, and we all deserve to be treated kindly, especially by ourselves. Jonathan, our first question. How is mindfulness a part of the self-love practice?
In a way, it's really all of it. I mean, yes, there are sitting meditations. And, for me personally, I have a yoga practice. So that's a moving meditation. And there are acceptance meditations and gratitude, mindfulness meditations, and forgiveness. But the reality is, it's about our whole life. Most of our days are lived unconsciously. We wake up in the morning and we have a habit. So we do whatever it is we do. We get up, we go to the bathroom, we brush teeth, maybe we have a cup of coffee or a cup of tea, then we go to work, and then we do whatever we're programmed to do at work, and we go on through our day, and we have a lunch break, and then we get home, and then we make dinner, and then we sit on the couch and we watch TV, and we go to bed, and we wake up, and then we go to the bathroom. It's this unconscious, and we are being controlled by all these outside forces. And it's like, you ever have somebody say, it's the end of the day, what did you do today? And you're thinking, oh, I'm so tired, but I have no idea what I did today. Has that ever happened to you? Like, you have no idea what you did all day long?
Yes, of course. We do so many things unconsciously.
Yeah. So I talk to people all the time, what was your day? I have no idea. Or Monday, how was your weekend? I have no idea what I did this weekend. This is about bringing consciousness to our daily activities. So it's not just a mindfulness practice of sitting for 5 minutes or 20 minutes or an hour. It's a practice of being mindful. I won't say every moment of every day, because let's be honest, that's kind of an impossibility for most of us. But bringing consciousness and awareness to many moments throughout the day. Brushing your teeth with awareness. Sipping your coffee or your tea with awareness. Feeling the seat of your chair with awareness. And making the decisions of what you do each day with awareness. Not just responding to everyone's fire that they need to put out, but being conscious about what your wishes are, what your needs are, what you need to do to help other people today, because we're here to help others, and consciously taking the actions that you need to take as you engage with yourself and with the world.
Yes, so I think the opposite would be inattentiveness, particularly because when I remember a quote from the Dhammapada, the sayings of the Buddha, and I just mentioned one paragraph here, one sentence here. He says, mindfulness is the way to the deathless, inattentiveness the way to death. Those who are diligently attentive do not die. Those who are thoughtless are as if dead already. Amazing, huh? So mindfulness
Yeah.
is yeah.
And it makes so much sense because at the end of the day, don't we often feel like we're dead? I have no idea what I did. I have no idea what I accomplished today. And I just want to fall onto my bed. It's kind of a dead life. And, one of the things I talk about in the self-love revolution is at all times, we're either growing or we're dying. Like you talk to someone, how you doing? And they'll answer, same old, same old. And I believe there is no same old, same old. You're either growing or dying. Now, it's not always a straight line. It's more like the stock market. It goes up and down, up and down, up and down. But in general, you want an upward trend of it. But so many people are unconscious and so many people are dying on the inside and so many people feel dead on the inside. And this is about, yes, bringing life into your moments so that you can enjoy the moments throughout the day. And at the end of the day, as you review it, you can, because we all do that, whether it's a good thing or not, right? And I do that. I review good things. So I'm not saying it's not a good thing, but we all do that. At the end of the day, we kind of review the day, we review the day, and you can know what you did. And then it's if you know what you did and you did it consciously, it's a perfect opportunity to have a gratitude practice because you probably did some good stuff during your day. And of course, there's a time for forgiveness practice too, for all the mistakes that we made during our day.
It says, basically say you can actually uncover the unconscious patterns that have us stuck and are sabotaging us. And one thing is to reverse the process. I mean, we have probably years and years of practice, or we had years and years of practice of thinking our life away, and by not being attentive, by thinking about the future or the past, or just maybe unconsciously we don't want to be alive, so we just walk around like zombies. But there is a way to uncover the unconscious patterns, according to you. And how can we let go or replace those voices that keep telling us, you're not good enough and won't amount to anything? Because ultimately there is this negative framework around this inattentiveness in our life. Because as children, we are all mindful because we don't have those inner voices, not, this inner critique. And when we get older, we start sabotaging ourselves, self-sabotaging ourselves. And that would be something you have written down, I think some 13 ways to self-sabotage ourselves somewhere in your mastermind group. I saw that. Could you elaborate on a few of them?
Yeah, well, there are the 13 saboteurs. There's the inner judge, there's the perfectionist, there's the procrastinator, there's the defender, right? If someone says you did something wrong, the defender rises up. The perfectionist and procrastinator are kind of self-explanatory. We all know what they are. But there's the defender who rises up in defense of any action, even if you know it's wrong. You still defend yourself. It's fascinating. The victim, right? Blame is one of the 13 saboteurs. We like to, everything has to have a reason. So therefore we need to blame usually someone else, but often ourselves as well. So, but there has to be blame for it. The people pleaser, right? The people pleaser, which is different than being kind. Kindness is being kind for the purpose of being kind. The people pleaser seeks to please people so that they get some sort of reward for it. And the people pleaser, and a lot of them work together. So the people pleaser and victim work together. So I'm going to people please, and then inevitably you do something for someone who you expect to be appreciative. That person is not appreciative. So then you go into blame, and then the victim rises up. See, I never can do anything right. The perfectionist and the procrastinator, they work close hand in hand. Since nothing can ever be perfect, therefore we procrastinate. Well, why should I do it since I know it can't be perfect? So yeah, in these voices in our head, just to begin to control our days. And it's fascinating. So how do you begin to change it? The first step is to pay attention, right? So we spoke about bringing consciousness into our daily activity. One is bringing consciousness to our thoughts. And don't try to change them right away. See, what everyone tries to do is we're taught then, once we reach a certain stage and, and maybe we've heard about the law of attraction, and then we're taught that some thoughts are bad. So we have to get rid of that thought, that thoughts are bad. And now there I am again. You have to get rid of a thought. Thoughts aren't
You can't,
bad.
and you can't.
Oh,
You can't
thoughts
just
aren't
get
bad.
rid of a thought, right?
Exactly. First, before you try and change it, which can be done, before you try and get rid of it, which can be done, you have to pay attention to it. Pay attention to the thought patterns you have without judgment. Be curious about them. Accept that there is an inner judge inside of you. Hey, it's in all of us. You're no different. You're not special. You are special and you're not special at the same time. In terms of the 13 saboteurs, you're not special. We all have an inner judge. We all have a perfectionist inside of us. We all, and some people are more controlled by certain saboteurs than other saboteurs. That is true. So by witnessing, you find out which of the saboteurs are most run in your life. And often there are two or three that are your main ones, even though the other ones may be playing a role. So you begin to witness them and notice their patterns. Then you can first, instead of fighting them, because then we want to fight them. I'm going to kick the inner critic's butt. There's nothing the inner critic or the inner judge loves more than a good fight with you, because it will rise up and kick your ass. It lives for it. Now, occasionally it will run away and make you think you won for a little bit. But you know that it always comes back, and usually bigger and badder, because they love a good fight. That's what they live for. So instead of giving them the fight they want, have compassion for them. Have compassion for that inner judge that is simply afraid. Have compassion for that procrastinator that is afraid that he or she or they won't be perfect and therefore will be judged poorly by others. Have compassion for the fear that these parts of you have. When you have compassion for these parts of you, and it's kind of like, I'm going on a slight tangent, I'll finish that sentence. We're a little schizophrenic. I'm not a doctor, so I do not use that in a medical sense. But we have these multiple personalities of the judge and the perfectionist and the victim. We have these multiple personalities. We know we have these voices in our heads. You know you're talking to yourself and you converse with yourself. So who are you talking to? Right? So there are these multiple personalities. And when you begin to have compassion for them, their power begins to dissolve away. These parts of you who feel unseen begin to feel seen. And that's all any of us want, is to feel seen and loved. And that's all these parts of us want, is to feel seen and loved. And once you do that, then you can activate the other personalities that we have, the inner guides that we have. The inner guide voices are very quiet. You need to talk to them. The 13 saboteurs, they'll talk to you anytime, anywhere they pop up. But we also have the inner guides, the future self. The main there's the main inner guide, but then there's the whole inner team. Sometimes we call it an inner army, the inner collective, the future self, the child self, the intuitive one, the courageous one, the fun one, right? Remember when you used to have fun all the time, and then one day they told you you're not supposed to have fun, you're supposed to work hard, like work can't be fun? Work can be fun. but you have to bring the fun one back into your life. So now you connect to these really powerful voices whose sole goal for you is your joy and your success. They have no fear and they love you unconditionally. When you activate these voices, you begin to live a beautiful, joyous, and conscious life, the conscious life that we were talking about before.
Yes, so you are saying as I listen, I think I understand you. It's similar to, I mean, we're not talking about particular religions. I don't have any particular faith, but I like wisdom tradition. So what comes to mind is a metaphor in Hinduism, and and they talk about the jiva, which is the small self, and the atman, which is the higher self. And they have this metaphor of a chess game, where you're the chess player and you have all these figures on the chessboard and you can play. And these chess figures are not you. They are your roles you play in life. They are also these inner voices, as I think now. And the metaphor goes there basically that to realize that you are the player. Often we identify ourselves so much and so seriously with our roles in life. And we neglect that there is this higher self, which is playing the game, the cosmic game, which is life. And yeah, I think that is when we self-sabotage ourselves. As you say, I think when we take the game too serious, children don't take the game too serious. When children play, they play nicely, they play hide and seek, they have role plays and all this. But when they stop playing, and they don't have a problem going back to themselves and being a child again. They go back to their mom and dad and they go to bed or they do their homework and they're just normal again, right? But when we in life, we get those inner voices, this perfectionist voice or, procrastinator, whatever it is, these sabotaging voices, then we take them so serious, like it's life and death, and we cannot just let go of it. And that's what it reminds me of.
Yeah. We say, we think these voices are life and death. There's the old saying, don't believe what you read. But there's the new saying, don't believe everything you think. Just because you think it doesn't mean it's true. And you can do a check-in, right? If that voice in your head says something, I do this all the time, and I work with people on this all the time. Sometimes we need this step before we go into compassion, but we just go, is it true? So the voice goes, you're not enough, or that won't work. You get to ask, is that true? Now, very occasionally, not that you're good enough, but very occasionally, they say something that is true, but 99% of the time, it's not true. And then you get to ask, well, if that's not true, what is true? And that's when the inner wisdom gets a chance to arise.
The other positive voices, as you mentioned, and they have to be cultivated. They have to be nurtured. They have
It's
to
like
be
going
listened.
to the gym. I talk about it like going to the gym. So you've been going to the gym for years, working the muscles of your saboteurs. They are so strong because you've been talking to them every single day, but you've been ignoring these other muscles of your inner guides. But you can go to the gym. You can work the muscle of these inner guides. And they've done research with children. Not that I always appreciate research that they have to do with children, but they spoke about the brain with children or school age children. I don't know the exact age. And for some, they shared that the brain was an organ and it was what it was. And for others, they shared that it was a muscle and you could strengthen it. And those that were taught that the brain could be strengthened did better on tests.
Makes sense.
Because they knew it would change. They knew they could work it. So if you begin to work your brain, and if you begin to work these parts of your brain and these positive voices inside of you, like a muscle, like going to the gym, then they will get stronger. I promise you, they will get stronger.
Yeah, I think that's what they also found out with meditation. The brain actually grows. It has the capability to grow like a muscle. What I also like, when you think about all this, Alan Watts once said, Alan Watts, that spiritual entertainer, poet, that even our innermost thoughts are not from ourselves. And when you look at linguistics, it's really just a part of our brain, the linguistics department. It has the the languages we speak, it has the words in there, but they did not come with us when we were born. They're beautiful to have. It's our education. We can expand our understanding about ourselves and about the world. But many times, unfortunately, we identify with those words and we don't see it anymore as part of us. We even try to define our own self. We try to define life itself, which is much bigger than words. And ultimately, Zen Buddhists say, like D.T. Suzuki, when thoughts come, offer them tea, but make sure the back door is open. So when they come, it's like, it's not there to identify ourselves with them, but rather to use the emptiness of our mind, to use them properly. And that's what we can choose them, use them to understand, but better not to identify with them, because they are always smaller than we are. I mean, that's what just comes to mind also now. I think, yes.
Yeah, it's about, you mentioned the chess game and not just being the pieces on the board, but being the player. So, we talk about being the observer, right? I spoke about, paying attention, watching your thoughts as they go through, not judging them good or bad, but watching them. And we need to begin to move into that role of observer, or work the muscle of the observer, and really even begin to observe ourselves. Now, in the Yoga Sutras, it talks about, the emancipation, samadhi, the highest level, nirvana, emancipation, all of that. It takes place when the seer and the seen become one. So that in the chess analogy, when the player and the pieces become one, when they merge to one. But we are living our life so much as the scene, the doer, that we can't merge them right away. So we need to practice being the observer, that 30,000 foot view that sometimes, in the business world, that's what we talk about, is take a step back and take the 30,000 foot view. Well, we need to do that with ourselves on a daily basis. Begin to really watch ourselves as we go through the world. And when you practice that enough, perhaps at some point you can merge the two. But you have to practice being that observer, being that seer. Yeah, and it just brought to my mind, there's a newer study that just came out about distanced self-talk. Now, it's something in a way I've been teaching for years, but didn't have that language for it. But it's talking to these parts of ourselves in the third person, or in the second or third person, right? So when we talk to the perfectionist or procrastinator, we can have conversations with the inner judge. We can have actual conversations with them and talk to them in the second person. But then what we can also do, and this research took it a step further, when we have thoughts, especially the unpleasant ones, using a third person pronoun. So I'm going to use he just because of me, when I talk about me. So if I'm not, let's say I'm angry one day, it's not I'm angry, it's like he's feeling angry. He's mad at whatever. And what that does is it begins to separate us. Now I'm the seer, I'm looking at him, me, but I, the seer, the observer, is looking at him, the doer, the one who's pissed off for whatever reason. And what they said in this research study is when people do this, when they talk about themselves in the third person, the inner dialogue. The inner dialogue isn't when it's in the third person that these negative feelings don't last quite as long. And I believe that's connected completely to this philosophy of being the observer or the seer.
Yes, I agree. In fact, I have a little paragraph from the Upanishads, the Mundaka Upanishad, and that exactly speaks about this. And Hinduism is great, and it about because all of yoga comes from that tradition, and they have this little story: two sweet friends, individual soul and universal spirit, and it goes like this. It's just a paragraph, a very short one. There are two birds, two sweet friends, who dwell on the self-same tree. The one eats the fruits thereof, and the other looks on in silence. The first is the human soul who, resting on that tree, though active, feels sad in his unwisdom. But on beholding the power and glory of the higher spirit, the Atman, he becomes free from sorrow. And, this was the quote, and it's from the Mundaka Upanishads. I got it out from Philip Novak, The World's Wisdom. And I have thought a lot about it. The picture is also very nicely here because the one bird has kind of this halo. It sits above on the self-same tree, and the other bird is eating the fruit thereof. But yes, he feels that this is the jiva, this is us. We live in this world, we experience it, but we feel sorrow because we are unwise. We don't have wisdom. And the further we go in this revolving door of, let's say, pleasures and pain, or even success. I mean, even serving others, these kind of things have somehow a revolving door effect until we reach that higher self-realization. So that reminded me on it, and I think we should familiarize ourselves with seeing ourselves even as a third person. And Hindus do that actually quite. It's one of their meditations. It's not for everybody because there are four kinds of people, right? Some people, they are more intellectually oriented, and they are the ones they're more emotionally oriented than the scientific ones, right? And the action oriented ones. So from there, the four kinds of yogas, of course, also like Jnana and Bhakti and Karma, and then the scientific one, the Raja Yoga. But this is a very interesting topic for me also to talk about this. It's interesting, finally, to see it in the context of our everyday life, where we talk about self-sabotaging because of this unwisdom we have being in the world and not allowing, so to speak, that witness that is also us. I mean, this is not separate, this stuff, the self-same tree, that two birds, this is just metaphorically talking about what we are talking about now, these different inner voices, right? And our reality, which is one, we are just oneness, higher self, the Atman, but we experience this life, and there comes this many roles and this many voices often into play. Yes, I think, yeah, sorry.
Now, I want to touch on what you said with the two birds and this idea of being free from sorrow, because I think it's really important to understand. And I'm going to share my perspective. And let me be clear, maybe when I'm more enlightened, I'll have a different perspective. But here's my perspective now, is that free from sorrow does not mean you don't experience sorrow. We are in human forms. We chose to be here, or we're sent here, or whatever you believe in terms of how we got here. We're here. And as humans, we are supposed to experience all of the human emotions. So free from sorrow to me doesn't mean we don't experience sorrow, but it means we're not controlled by sorrow. when we experience it, when we feel it. Feeling sorrow is not a bad thing. In fact, much of our learning and growth comes from times when we felt sorrow. If someone important in our life dies, we feel sorrow. And normally, if we are able to process the grief that goes with that, we have great learning from it. We learn from these difficult times. These difficult times are put in front of us by the wisdom of the universe so that we can learn and grow. Because as we said before, we're either learning and growing or we're dying. So the universe says, I don't want you to die. So here's some stuff that I'm going to put in front of you so you can feel it. And if you feel it, you will discover wisdom from it and you can learn and grow.
I agree 100%
So
with it.
I don't want people to push sorrow away. Embrace your sorrow, feel your sorrow. It doesn't need to control you. That's what freedom means.
Yes, I agree. It's a view of the world also, the way you talk and the way I see it now, is it is a middling world. I don't think we have to go to one extreme. It doesn't have to be uh, necessarily return to paradise, and one time the world will be paradise and heaven, whatever, or the other way around, it will be hell. It's a middling world, and that middling world, it's full of dualities, whether they are now phenomena, and they are not really dualities. Maybe they end up all in this non-duality one day. Uh, Not on this in this world, but here in this world, I see the dualities beautifully working together for our own sake. We can learn from it, pain and pleasure. Myself, I've had these very bad experiences. When you look back, these were the really good learning experiences, correct?
Yeah, I wouldn't wish a life of no pain or no sadness or no sorrow on anyone. On anyone. It would be a miserable life. Because that's where the learning and growing takes place. And then we get to look back and share these great stories of learning and growing with people. Those are the stories we share of the difficulty that we triumphed through. They're to be celebrated.
Yes, well, unfortunately, we don't notice often, and then we go to the extremes. When we go to extreme sorrow or suffering, we can't remember anymore the other side of the coin. And when we are super happy, and everything is fine, we sometimes don't remember anymore, that we also had the other side. It's like this is the problem with duality, not the problem of duality, it's the problem of us growing and learning, because we very nicely go into polarizations about it, and then we can get really stuck. I would like to go to the four pillars of self-love, because this is your framework and it's so beautiful. I heard it, a few days ago, and I couldn't stop thinking about it. Could you elaborate more on the four pillars of self-love?
Yes, I would love to. So the first pillar is acceptance. And it even lends in, we were talking about feeling sorrow. So it's simply accepting that there is sorrow inside of me. Not in a way, it's separating the thought from the inner body experience. So when we feel sorrow or any other emotion, there's an associated sensation inside of the body. In fact, that word, sorrow or anger or happiness and joy, they are in English, because other languages have different words. We feel something inside of it and we call it sadness or anger or joy or happiness. We could call it anything, but really we're describing a feeling inside of us. So the first pillar is simply acceptance of this feeling inside of us that we are experiencing right now in this moment without fighting it, as we spoke about before. The second pillar is gratitude. Being grateful for things. We have tens of thousands of thoughts a day, and 95% of them, according to the research, are the same thoughts that we had yesterday. And 80% of those are negative thoughts. And then we wonder why we feel negative about life. Well, because 80% of your life, you're thinking negative things. But we get to change this by looking for positive things in our lives. And here's what's really interesting, so the 80% negative thoughts, we complain about a lot of things. We'll complain about anything. We'll complain about the weather. We'll complain about a broken glass. If we break a glass, we'll complain about dirty dishes in the sink. We complain about the
If there's
teeniest
nothing,
of
we find something.
things. But gratitude, yeah, and if there's nothing to complain about, we look for it. I mean, that's why we complain about the weather. Well, there's nothing else to complain about. So, well, let's complain about the weather. Either it's too hot or it's too cold. Gratitude is often saved for the biggest things. Like I got the promotion, or this great thing happened to me today, or whatever it is. It has to be something really big. And we need to reverse that, where we're grateful for the smallest things, the running water, the bud of the flower that's just beginning to grow on that tree, that you actually do have a glass, that you broke one and there's another glass around for you to use. Gratitude for the smallest of things and the big things, gratitude for the smallest of things, and save those complaints for those big things. There's a lot to complain about in the world, and we certainly need a lot of things to fix. So save it for those big things and use gratitude for the little things. So the second pillar is gratitude. The third pillar is forgiveness. And there are three paths of forgiveness. There's the path of forgiving another, someone who you feel has done something wrong to you. There's asking forgiveness from another, someone that you have wronged. And the most difficult, what I've found, the most difficult of the three paths, which is forgiveness of yourself for things we have done or things we haven't done. And it's important to practice all three paths of forgiveness, especially that final one. If you get that final one, forgiveness of self, usually the other ones can fall into place. And it's important to understand what forgiveness is. Forgiveness does not mean that what happened in the past was okay, that what that other person did or didn't do is okay, or what you did or didn't do is okay. Forgiveness simply means giving up hope that the past can be any different. Now, I'll say that again, because I think it's really important. And to be clear, I didn't make this up. Forgiveness is giving up hope that the past can be any different, because we expend so much energy trying to change the past. If only that would have been different, my life would be different today and everything would be perfect. Well, maybe that's even true, but it doesn't matter, because we can't make the past different. So when you practice forgiveness, you free yourself from, you're chained to the past because you keep thinking it over and over. And by practicing forgiveness, you free yourself from those chains. You unlock those chains and you can begin creating the life going forward. And the fourth pillar is simply self-compassion, self-love, being kind to yourself, looking yourself in the mirror, and instead of berating yourself for all of your mistakes over the day or your life, instead of picking out all those faults of your body, the new wrinkle in your face, the blemish that's standing out. Oh no, there's that one on the nose. Everyone's going to see that one. Instead of berating yourself, like, you don't have to be happy that there's a new bump on your nose or there's a new wrinkle, but you can highlight the things that you are appreciative of in your body. Your hands work, if they do, right? If you're hearing this, your ears are working. Thank your ears. How often you said, hey, thank you, ears, that you are still working. I thank my ears all the time. I have a ringing in my ears. I saw many rock concerts as a child, so I have a nonstop ringing in my ears. And I used to be really pissed off at my ears because of this ringing. And now, honestly, every day they still work because it's beginning to get worse. Every day they still work and I can hear. I just say, thank you, ears. Even if I have to say what sometimes, I just say, thank you, ears. You can still hear, and I appreciate the sounds you are bringing to me. So self-compassion is just treating yourself as you would treat a friend. Can you begin to really be a friend instead of being a bully to yourself and beating yourself up all the time, which so many of us do. Can you begin to be a friend to yourself so that you can find refuge within yourself?
Yes. Yes.
So acceptance, gratitude, forgiveness,
And it all circles
self-love.
from the outside
Those are the
in
four
and from the
pillars.
inside out. It's basically all our field of reference is, of course, ourselves, and that's where it ends or starts. And then the world, of course, so it's all going back and forth.
Yeah, I mean, to be clear, because then some people will say, well, isn't self-love, isn't that selfish? You're only thinking of yourself. So to be clear, really clear, when you practice this, you end up being kinder to other people. And it's not that you're never mean again, or you don't fall back, you don't make a mistake. We're all triggered. We all have trauma, and we're all triggered. But in general, you become a kinder human being because you witness the humanity in other people. Because you're being kinder to yourself when you make a mistake, you become kinder to others when they make mistakes. Your purpose here is to connect with and help other people. Self-love is a pathway so that you can connect to others more deeply and be kinder to them.
That's beautiful. So it is all, like the Hindus also say, the Lord of Indra's net, the Lord of Indra's net is also used in Buddhism, where all the jewels which are connecting the net on each ending point is a jewel and a gem, and it connects everything else all together is also a jewel, and we are a jewel. And what we do, what we feel, if we have self-love, it is affecting the entire net, and it's not selfish. It's a good thing, right? Jonathan, you have a very important speaking appointment after this. Otherwise, we could go on for another half an hour. We will be on a podcast again, I'm very sure.
Good. I could talk to you forever.
And I could listen all day long.
You're
really.
amazing.
It's really fantastic. It's our second podcast now. For Jonathan's masterclass and interviews, private coaching, and particularly his beautiful meditations, I still wanted to do one with you, but it's really, we're running out of time. There would have been a little one about self-forgiveness, but one can find it on your website, selfloverevolution.com. Self-love revolution, one word. It's in the show notes with this episode, and also the social handles will be there, how you can find Jonathan on Facebook. And there is a YouTube channel he has, and you will find his email, however you want to get in contact with him. Jonathan, thank you very much. I'm going to use this now to end our podcast episode. So, Jonathan, thank you for being here.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for the conversation.
Yes,
I really enjoyed it.
It was a very, very fascinating conversation with you, and for having been on the show, all our listeners. And it was a real pleasure and a learning experience. The recap of the show with bullet points, this all in the show notes, as I said, and the links mentioned. There was only the website mentioned and the social handles on ombythebeach.com. If you like this podcast, please subscribe to have you here again for our next episode. This is your host, Joseph Schinwald. Thank you and goodbye until we meet again.